I need more storage. Funny story, I was over at a friend's house and he's like, hey, I got this thing in the garage I think you'd like. What is it? It's like this old, rusty, like industrial lock.
Yarp.
You want it?
Yarp.
I mean, did you want to see it?
Narp.
Okay, bring your truck over. Ain't she a beaut? I would have paid upwards of dollars for it, but you just gave it to me for free. I mean, it's not perfect. It's not in great shape, but it ain't in bad shape either. Just needs some loving. I guess the plan is to strip this thing down to bare bolts, get it down to bare metal, and then have my way with it. But before we do that, we gotta do a lead test. Name 3 albums. Not that kind of lead test. This kind of lead test. Just take one of these swabs, you get a little wet, wipe it on the paint. If the swab turns like a maroon red type kind of thing, you got lead paint. That's a problem. But if it stays orange yellow like this, we're in the clear. Went through and just hit everything with blaster, PB blaster. This stuff works great. I mean, it's got a real powerful rust penetrating catalyst. Well, I was only able to get one door off because
Houston, we have a problem.
these like rivet nut things are just a pain in the ass. There's no slot, there's no like hex head to it to get a grip on it. And once these things get broken loose, a lot of times they just keep on spinning. Wasn't that fun? Modifications are going to be needed. Looks like the only thing that's going to work for these are the old vice grips. Then give it hell. Hey. Now that we got the doors off, how do we go from old and busted to factory new? Sandblasting. Now the cool thing about sandblasting is, old and busted to factory new. Well, a lot of steps. 5. First up, we're gonna get rid of the old paint. Quickest way to do that, paint stripper. First thing we wanna do is get some gloves on. We're gonna take a little bit of this plastic and then sheet that out and put your door on there. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this citrus stuff, it's not the best stuff on the market, but it is the cheapest and it's non-toxic.
False.
On the other hand, it's smooth and rich and gooey. Do not eat the paint filler. Pour a healthy amount onto the door and spread it around using your chip brush. You wanna do a really thick yet even coat. To do the sides, I actually just take some of this and put it right on the plastic so that way when I fold it up, it kind of like makes it stay in place. Once it's evenly spread, you're gonna fold your plastic onto it.
Tuck, tuck, fold.
Making sure that the edges don't have any air bubbles.
Air's our enemy, isn't it?
The reason I kind of wrap it in plastic for a couple reasons. 1, this stuff will evaporate, especially in this hot weather. 2, this stuff is messy and gross. So you kind of have like a barrier to kind of keep all this stuff in there because this is ew! And then 3, as it's actually getting into the paint and like the different layers, you can actually massage the top of it to work that stuff in there and get like underneath different layers of paint. Let it sit for like an hour or 2. See what it looks like. It doesn't work the best. It takes quite some time, but what we started with after 1 coat, I think that was about like an hour, and then finally a second coat for like another hour. We got it pretty much down to bare metal, but we still got quite a bit of surface rust on there. I used a new product, rust dissolver. I'm gonna put some of this rust dissolver into a spray bottle, soak the whole thing, wrap it in plastic, and see what happens. All right, let's see what we got. Whoa, all that rust turned to like this black gnarled kind of stuff. Really cool effect, but not exactly what we were going for. If you actually look at the difference between the two metals too, you have like a warm gray with this one and like more of like a cool gray with this one. Once all that rust has been neutralized, it's time to scrape it off. Wire brushes. If you got just a little bit of rust, I mean a real light amount, steel wool will do the trick. A little bit of elbow grease, take your time, get in those nice little crannies. It'll clean up great. But if you got some pesky rust that just doesn't want to go, get some of these wire wheels. Made a very simple jig that's just going to hold the doors while I work on it. It's made out of scrap wood and it clamps right to the bench. They come in a variety of shapes, so that way you can kind of get in like the weird little angles and get in there just right. You gotta wear safety goggles though. I've learned the hard way a couple times. Safety first. What if your rust has just overtaken everything? Like this. Big problems call for big solutions. This is an angle grinder with an industrial wire brush. Real quick, make sure your metal can handle this kind of stuff. If your metal can't stop a bullet, maybe take it easy with the wire brush. Well, since the rust is off, we got a lot of pock marks left over. Time to fill that in with Bondo. Forgive me if I get this wrong. I probably will. It's two parts. You got your putty, you got your activator. You're gonna put the majority of the putty down, and I think it's like 1:3 ratio with the activator. You're gonna mix it up in a nice little circle, like on some like scrap paper. Once it has like the consistency of like icing on a cake, you want to apply it consistently and smooth as possible, and then let it cure for about 24 hours. Hopefully you have a better result than I did. It was tough getting in the vents, so I just used my fingers to kind of like spread it in there. It's probably gonna bite me in the ass. I'm gonna use my orbital sander to get about a good majority of this stuff off on the flat areas. I'm not gonna mess with the vents with this. Knock it down until you can start to see it's smoothing out a little bit. Up next, I'm gonna use a Dremel with one of these little paddles.
Oh yeah, no, you know what? No, yeah.
Sandpaper. Hand sand it to get that perfect result. Take your time, take your time, take your time. It's more important that it feels smooth, not so much looks smooth. You kind of see like all these like little pits that got filled in. I think we got it. The results will show in the paint job.
Oops.
And then finally, once it's all nice and smoothed out, it's time to paint. With dealing with bare metal, you definitely want to get primer on this. It's just going to really help that final coat just stick to that metal just perfectly. Primer's pretty straightforward. You're just going to take a metal hanger, you're going to unwind it, and then hang it from the 15,000 hooks that you have in the ceiling of your garage. Hang your door on there and put a light coat of primer on there. Now for most of these doors, that one coat, all you really want to do is do a very light sanding on the surface just to get rid of like any kind of like inconsistency or dust that might have been stuck on there. But for these problem child ones,
don't mess around with me.
You're gonna have to sand again. Fret not, my baby birds. They make a primer designated for this kind of stuff. Body filling primer. It's a little bit thicker and it gets like in like those little crevices that are just barely showing up. And when you sand it off, it kind of helps being like that like microscopic filler instead of like the Bondo being the big thick filler. Works pretty good. All right, so you got at least 2 coats of primer on your door. You've sanded it down, it's nice and smooth. It's time for top coat. I'm gonna go with race car red because I want this cabinet to be
Fast as fuck, boy.
Couple things with the top coat. You're gonna do 2 light coats. And when I say light, you don't need 100% coverage. No, you're going for like 90 to 95% with that first coat.
20 minutes till.
Second coat, you're gonna do the same thing, but we're gonna try to get closer to 100% if you can. And then lastly, that third coat, I call it the slow coat. You're gonna move your paste a lot slower in one direction, slightly overlapping itself. Make sure that the spray is going away from where you just sprayed, because that mist will create a weird texture on the surface that you don't want. A couple little tidbits. Uh-oh, you got some drips. Either you're too close or you're too slow. Either way, the paint is too thick. Back up.
Speed up.
Should solve it. Uh-oh, I see a bunch of scratch marks on it. When you sanded it, you didn't go finer and finer grit with the sandpaper, so that way you're just scuffing up the surface instead of smoothing it out. You should start like at 120 and work your all the way out to like 420. Finer the sandpaper, the less likely you're gonna have scratches and have a smooth surface. Uh-oh, I painted it 3 days ago and it's still sticky. You done f***ed up, son. Someone didn't read the little writing on the back of the can now, did they?
No. No. Mm-mm. Mm-mm. No. No.
You know that part about humidity?
Hell no!
They ain't playing. When it's super humid outside and you're using spray paint, you're actually trapping that moisture in the air onto the surface. Now it can't cure. It's just fighting that moisture the whole time and it just never cures and it stays sticky. You can either run a dehumidifier or just look at the weather, man. Just look at the weather, man. Uh-oh! I painted it and it has this weird wrinkly surface. You either gotta hit it all in 2 hours or wait 2 days. See, when the paint underneath is still curing and you put a new coat on there, it does that weird wrinkly stuff. Ends up looking like Abe Vigoda's face. When that happens, you gotta Command Z that shit. Start it over!
Evie, shut up and sit down, you big bald
Time to work on the cabinets. Wanna see a magic trick? High five. Friendship. So it turns out after disassembly, I don't need all the side panels. I only need 3 out of the 4, but what to do with this guy? Trying to get ideas for this cabinet, and I came across this really cool picture of like a locker where the doors were like all beat up and gnarled and patinaed, where the frame was nice and clean and repainted and smooth. I think I'm gonna use that same idea, but then flip the door and the frame idea. The frame is so chewed up from years of mopping that I don't think I could ever get it nice and smooth. So let's have that be like the patina part. I cleaned up the legs, but man, these things are so far gone. They're just covered in rust, and like the amount of bumps and like bruises that it got. Emergency surgery is necessary. I have no legs. So once the rust is gone, put some primer on there, and then when in doubt, murder out. Flat black, easiest spray paint to work with, and covers up a lot of mistakes. So remember earlier how I was talking about like if your metal isn't thick enough, don't use the wire brush? Perfect example. See, parts of this cabinet is nice thick metal. It's like almost like a 1/16 of an inch. The other stuff, 1/64 of an inch. For this thinner metal, we're not gonna mess with the wire brushes. We're just gonna go straight sanding. Biggest goal was just to get the rust taken care of. We're gonna hit it with primer and we're gonna flat black the outside of it, but the inside, what color should I go with? If you have any suggestions, comment below. It's gonna be yellow. So these shelves are not in great condition. I mean, ugh. I made a simple jig just like I did with the doors. All I'm gonna do is just pop this on there and then hit it with a sander just to smooth it out so it looks decent on primer. Once the primer's dried, I'm gonna try something new. contact paper. Now, contact paper in the past, pretty flimsy, pretty gross, but come on.
Fastest boy.
It's got a good texture to it, it's a little bit thicker. I think it's gonna hold up, and it's actually gonna cover up a lot of this bolt. You're gonna use a clean putty knife in order to smooth it all out and get it nice and uniform. Make sure to work out all the air bubbles. And if you do end up with an air bubble, don't fret. Just poke the center of it with like an X-Acto knife, and then work out the air like you're popping a zip. With me lopping off the legs, we gotta support that bottom bracket a little bit better. I just cut a piece of wood that's pretty much the same shape as that bottom piece.
Getting jiggy with it.
You got new legs.
So for the outside panel, I thought I'd do a little experiment where I use flat paint and like clear coat on a stencil just to see what it looked like. Well, not great. Good thing about paint though, the more layers of paint you have on there, the better rust protection you have. Closing it now.
Well, that wasn't such a chore now, was it?
If you want to see how I did this second cabinet, well, rewind to this time and then skip this time. Welcome back! So a couple fun facts about these cabinets is when I first got them, it was an ugly marriage. The areas where the bolts were connecting these two together were completely torn up. And then the second is it made this really ugly gap in between the two. I'm planning to have one bolt go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different pieces of metal and then have them like seal together, and that way we don't have that weird gap. I got these really cool tags off of Etsy. The only problem is they don't fit the existing holes in the door. No worries. Make a simple jig, mark them with the punch. When you're drilling metal, use some oil. Drill a hole, pop them in. Is she perfect? Perfect? No, but she looks damn good. Definitely love the hardware upgrades. That just little bit of brass just really sets off from the rest of it. Love the flat black, and I love that side. But man, when you open this thing up, that yellow, red, black combo just... Now it's all done. Let's take it for a test drive.
Fastest boy.
Let's see what Greg thinks of it. What up, my dude?
What's up, Tony? Wow. Wow is all I have to say. It doesn't even look like the same cabinet at all. You're annoying.
Did you want this little piece of metal that was in the middle? No. Sure?
Yes. Wow. That is awesome.
Well, that's a wrap. Sorry about the audio. Don't blame me. My audio guy screwed something up. You're lucky I don't pay you. But anyways, took some hello my name is stickers, put them on some magnets. Where do I put this thing? Spent 3 months getting this thing pristine and now I have no place to put it, so something we can talk about over a nice cold beer.